Thank you. So welcome to Eastern Planning Committee for BCP Council for Thursday, 28th of August. If I hand over to Democratic Services first.
Thank you, Chair. Please note this meeting is being recorded by the Council for live broadcast and will be published on the Council website for a minimum of 6 months. The meeting may also be recorded or streamed for live or subsequent broadcast by members of the public, although ultimate discretion in this matter lies with the Chair in case of disruption. For those in the room, please note if the fire alarm sounds, please exit the building by way of the nearest available signed fire exit route and make your way to the assembly point at the War Memorial in the gardens opposite the front of this building. Finally, please ensure background noise is kept to a minimum. Mobile phones and other devices are turned off or switched to silent for the duration of the meeting. For those in the room, this includes turning off microphones and turning the volume down completely on your laptops. Thank you.
Thank you for those notes. And first of all, item 1 is apologies.
So we've had apologies from Councillor Toby Slade, Councillor Michael Tarling and Councillor Joe Salmon. And substitute members, Councillor Bernadette Nonovo is here for Councillor Tarling.
Okay, great. So I'm Councillor Paul Hilliard. I'm the chair of the committee and I'll ask people to go round and introduce.
And I'm Councillor Marion Le Pedvin. I'm Councillor for Newtown and Heatherlands Ward and I'm Vice Chair of this committee.
I'm Matt Gillett and I'm Councillor for Talbot Woods.
Bernadette Nonovo, Councillor for East Southbourne and Chuckton.
Councillor Felicity Rice, Councillor for Oakdale Ward.
Councillor Julian Martin, Councillor for Boscombe West.
Councillor Joe Clements, Penhill Ward.
Councillor Lawrence Williams, Littledown and Iford.
Councillor David Flagg, Burton Grange Ward.
Alexis Edwards, Transport Development Management and Policy Manager.
Jocelyn Holbrook, what's my job? Transport Development Management Team Leader. Thank you.
Claire McCarthy, Senior Planner.
Sanjay Timana, Team Leader, Strategic Applications.
John Bishop, Head of Planning.
That's great, and we're supported by Jill Hollyoak and Democratic Services. Item 3 is declarations of interest. Do we have anything to state? Councillor Nonovo?
Not on the first item on the agenda, but items 2 and 3, I'm Councillor for East Southbourne and Tuckton, where these applications, these businesses are based. So I will be stepping out to speak on these items.
Thanks for confirming that. Councillor Flagg?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just to confirm that I represent the BCP Council on outside bodies for the Bournemouth Airport Community Fund.
Thank you, and I also am on that committee. Okay, so item 4 is confirmation of minutes. So these are the minutes for our meeting of the 31st of July 2025. Are you all happy to agree those minutes?
Yes.
That's agreed. Thank you. Item 5 is public issues. So after officer presentations, we will hear any public speakers followed by any ward councillors who wish to speak. So item 6 is schedule of planning applications and 6A is Bournemouth Airport Terminal Building. And Ms McCarthy, thank you.
Morning, members. This is an application at Bournemouth International Airport, and you can see from the slide it's extensions to the terminal buildings and a reconfigured transport interchange with landscape and associated works. Can you hear me better now? Would you like me to repeat that? No. So the application reference number is there. So just to emphasise, this is for extensions to the terminal buildings, and it's a completely separate matter from the original terminal buildings and what is tied to those. This is infill extensions and side extensions to a terminal that already exists. So just to give you the context of Bournemouth Airport and the surroundings, you can see the airport here and its existing departures and arrivals buildings, which you'll see a lot more of in a minute. The car parks that surround the airport as part of it. And this is Parkfield School here, which has closed and is currently vacant. That's not part of the airport complex. You can see Herne Quarry down to the south, which is very active and is the source of our need for red routes, which I'll come on to later. You can see the runway east-west and all of the various taxiways in the airfield. This application is just limited to the areas of the terminal buildings in this block here. And here you can see a very small area, which is the existing transport interchange, and that will be moving up to this area here. We've got more detail of that coming. But to start with, just to mention that a screening opinion was undertaken before to see if this application, in combination with a number of permitted development applications, had to be an EIA development, and it was concluded that taking all the items together, it still didn't meet the threshold for an environmental statement being required. There was also a habitats regulations assessment undertaken by a specialist ecologist, and it was concluded that the infill area of this terminal did not have any significant impacts on pathways through the Heathland area. Just so for a bit more background on policy, Bournemouth Airport has been excluded from the Green Belt, which happened as part of the Christchurch and East Dorset Core Strategy, Local Plan Part 1. And all around it, to the north, south, east and west, we have the Green Belt. But the airport itself is excluded, and that was specifically done because of the policies for expanding the Green Belt and the need for that expansion. So here is the red line plan, which shows the outline of the application site, and you can see that's specifically tied to this area where the existing buildings are. The existing departures building is in blue here, and the existing arrivals building here. And where all these spaces are up to the red line is where other buildings will be put, and also a little bit more here. So this area, this whole area here is going to change and become the new transport interchange in place of this part here, which is currently that area. So just to start with a bit of history, which is very important here for the terminal. So in 2007, the terminal permission and legal agreement that went with it remains relevant for all matters to do with monitoring and controlling operations at the airport and passenger numbers. So this application is not going to take on that role of monitoring or controlling operations. That sticks with the original terminal application. And with that, I want to read out all the matters that are listed on the screen, because it's really important, because we have received representations. There have been some late representations, 40 representations on the 25th of August, on Bank Holiday Monday, arrived from residents of Brockenhurst, really concerned about low-flying aircraft and aircraft noise. And this is a matter which is controlled by the original Section 106 agreement, which has been varied in 2010 and 2015, and may be varied again in the future, but it all relates to that application. So what you're looking at, members, today is the physical extensions and the impact on traffic and the impact on environment from the extensions that are being undertaken and the transport interchange. And so we're looking at all the transport matters, but we're not focusing on the matters that are covered by the other agreement. So the matters that are covered, just for reassurance, in the Section 106 agreement are landing noise, departure noise, circuits heights, ground running, monitoring of flight and numbers and types, nighttime operations, quota for how many aircraft can land and nighttime noise budget, surface access for buses from Bournemouth interchange and the green travel plan, highway works contributions for junction improvements at Blackwater Junction and the airport at Parley Lane, which have taken place, air quality monitoring scheme for vegetation and nitrogen dioxide levels, carbon management action plan and carbon audit, and public art. All these matters will remain to be controlled by those Section 106 covenants. There is an airport transport forum that reports with an annual monitoring report, and the noise complaints are handled through a process set out in the covenants of this 2007 legal agreement as varied. So I just wanted that to be really clear to members what we're looking at on this application. Bit more history before we get into it. So the Bournemouth Airport strategy in 2007 was brought forward to identify a programme of development of the terminal, so that the terminal buildings have changed several times during the process to adapt to the level of passenger numbers that are on board at the time. There's 3 million passengers will be the end product, but at the moment we're at 1.1 million. Well, it was in 2024. It may be easing towards the 1.2 million, but we're not any further than that at the moment. But these buildings are building towards that end goal of the 3 million passengers. So the airport strategy in the blue, dark blue areas shows you the arrivals building that's there now, and the departures building here. And those were identified to have been completed by 2015 in the strategy. They were, in fact, the departures was completed in 2010, I think, and 2011 for the arrivals building. And the light blue area is the area of infill expansion by 2030, here with in front of the arrivals building and at the infill. There's also the baggage handling by 2030 in the purple here, and there's also another extension to the area that's in pink here. So the most relevant policy about this vision and how it's established is that it will is BA1 of Bournemouth, of the Christchurch and East Dorset local plan, and the main part here to emphasise is it will enhance its passenger facilities, provide new services for business and leisure travellers, and develop as an aviation and local transport hub. And those matters are very pertinent to the application you're looking at today. This is the next stage of trying to really develop that local transport hub and also to improve the passenger facilities. So in 2022, this was the terminal, an aerial view of the terminal, showing the departures lounge here with its main entrance here, and the arrivals building here. And you can see the area in between where the infill will happen is currently just hard standing and various temporary buildings and structures. This area down here, where it's going to be extended with another similar design of that, is just hard standing too, and temporary buildings. Baggage will be shown later in this area, and that will cover the new extensions. As I've mentioned before, this is the existing transport interchange, and it doesn't accommodate very well enough facilities for buses, for taxi drop-offs and for cycles and for access through. And so the airport is investing in a completely new passenger interchange, and this area will become largely landscaped and hard surface for giving access to the new terminal buildings. And this area here, this building had prior approval for demolition about a year ago, and is now demolished, and the interchange will be in this area here, and these trees form part of that area to be retained. So the airport have provided an aerial shot August 2025, which has been very helpful to try and identify where we're at. And this shows the baggage area, which is now partly constructed. It's fully constructed externally and is proposed as part of this application. But just to give a bit of context here, an application for a canopy over this proposed baggage area was approved under delegated powers about 6 months ago, and the idea being that the canopy was there to aid the construction of the external factors of this baggage area. Internally, it's still being fitted out and hasn't yet been used for baggage. So that will come next, should members approve that aspect as part of this application. This is the second part, another sort of semicircular roofed area here to extend the departures lounge for additional passengers. And this area here is the area where the infill will happen, and that's largely going to be related to security for both arrivals and departures buildings. And the building will become joined with the arrivals and departures, all forming one building. There's a permitted development area here. I think that was baggage again, I can't remember now exactly, but that area has already got permission under permitted development rights. But there's going to be a forward extension coming out here to the arrivals building, and that is just to give you the context in an aerial photograph of what's happening. So this is the existing departures building. These are photographs I took in April, and you can see that there's hoardings up everywhere. So it's quite difficult, which is why I showed you mainly from that shot that the airport have provided the aerial view. But the access will be here remaining for people coming from the car parks to get into the departures lounge, but there will also be a side access and a corridor down through the side of the whole terminal building from the new interchange. This is a side view of that departures lounge, and you can see this infill area here, but it's screened by the hoardings at present, but you can see that that's where it's hard standing, and that's going to be infilled. You can see in this area that's also forms part of the travel interchange area and the existing one, and these 3 trees will need to be removed. They will be replaced as part of the planting on site, and also there will be some off site if needed for the biodiversity net gain. The arrivals building in 2024, you can see it's completely separate, and you can see this is the area, the hard standing area, that will be extended in front and to the side and linking up with the departures lounge. This was it taken in April, and because of the hoardings, I've provided the previous one so you could see the context. This is that new permitted development extension that's been built, and there will be an extension in front of that now as part of this application. So the application is in 2 phases. We have summer 26A and summer 26B. So I am showing you the plans for the first phase on this slide. And in cream, you can see the baggage area and how that fits in with the departures lounge, and also the departures lounge extension here. How the arrivals front extension of the building will look here, and it runs across a little bit more of the front there and also here. At this stage, in the first phase, that hard standing area will still remain the same, and it will be surrounded in hoardings. The next phase will be to provide the infill for the mainly security area, and this in cream shows you the extent of that. And you can see here that new entrance that's going to come with footpaths through from the new transport interchange. So the previous one was in this area. The new transport interchange comes up to here. And I'll come into more detail about what's included in that later. So there's also now a slide of the combined extensions. So you can see how it all pieces together as a jigsaw, and the infill will mean that we have a combined terminal facility of the departures and arrivals and how that all slots in. And we will have one building. And the transport interchange sits there, and you can see now the old one is phased out and it's got its area in here. So as an engine, the drawings are all engineering drawings, and they are, the elevations are very small because we have 185 metres I measured between the end of arrivals and the baggage area down here. So it's very hard to show in great detail. So what I've done is I've zoomed in on the arrivals part here. This is the view from the car parks in the airport. The east view is when if you imagine yourself in those car parks looking forwards to the entry points. That's the front of the arrivals building with the added extension in the blue area. And looking from the, and you can see from the sort of Great Long Run, you can see how that sits there. And also some of the other extensions in this part here, the baggage area here, and the extra little semicircular domed bit tucked at the back there. From the south, you'll only see, which is if you are coming up from the airport entrance up Herne Court Lane, before you get to the car parks, you'd see this extra section on the departures lounge right next to the airfield and where the planes go out from. So it's quite tucked out of view, really. West and north elevations here. So this is view from the airfield of how that extra section would look, and the baggage area. That's the departures lounge, and that's the baggage area. And from the north view, from the run, if you were up by the runway looking down, which you're unlikely to be, but maybe from the transport interchange, you might just see this side view of the extra extension on the front of the arrivals building. So that's the existing arrivals building there, and the extension goes to the far side of it a bit and in front of it a bit. And this is part of the 3 extensions which are in the first phase. Now it's all combined. For the summer 26B, you can see all of the extensions combined, and this is the new infill part, the terminal extension linking departures and arrivals buildings. There's no change to the view from the south because we would already at that stage have this extra departure lounge building constructed. This is an enlargement of the view from the east, of the connected arrivals, the new infill, and the departures building and how that all looks. The materials are the same as existing with metal cladding, so it's all going to tie in and aesthetically work well. The west and north views of the, so the new infill extension viewed from the airfield, if you ever did view it from the airfield, would look like that from the rear, and the baggage and departure lounge. And the north view of the arrivals, it's come up very fuzzy, it was such small, but just to try and show you how that the extra parts are, that would be looking at the extra extension at the front here and this bit here. So we've got some ground floor plans. I'll whip through these because I hope you've now got the gist of where all these things are. But the baggage area here, the terminal departures lounge extra bit here, and this is the floor area of the arrivals bit for the first phase. This shows where the infill goes, and those areas have now gone blue, and that's part of the overall. And this area is mostly security, and this kind of shows a rough indication of the office areas and building floor space. So then we have the combined, which now shows all of them in cream. So you can see what's been added and what's left in blue as existing. So how that all works, and you can see that put together it actually consolidates everything and makes it work much better for passengers and for staff. This is a first floor plan. I believe that this area, this is existing plant. There's very little at first floor. It's nearly all on the ground floor, but at first floor, this is the existing plant, and this is some existing offices. And this is the roof of the new infill extension. And just to mention that on the part next to the arrivals building, there will be solar panels, and there is, which is just before the arrivals infill, which is here. And there's windows as well, so that to bring in light to the large areas underneath. Landscape and terminal area. This area, terminal entrance, is going to be largely permeable paving to help with sustainable drainage. You can see the 3 trees that are being removed dotted there, and 3 will be retained. And these are also retained trees, the lovely oak trees, which I'll give you a photograph next, and new tree planting all around the transport interchange. I will explain what's in this interchange in the next slide, but that won't have all this landscaping on it. So if you can imagine that we have got some trees to soften the edge of that area, and there's some mounding in this area, and these are existing features. You can also see retention of existing trees in this area on Herncourt Lane. So this is the trees that are going to form the front part of the transport interchange, and they are to be retained. There's conditions to ensure that they are protected during development with screening, and there's 3 trees in this line, 1, 2, 3 there, and 1 here. They're all to be retained. So the transport interchange, and this is probably the biggest, most interesting part of this application, because we have at last got some really good sustainable transport measures in place, which was all identified in the Green Travel Plan back in 2007. But as numbers have risen, we really need to address that now and get things improved. So the permeable paving area is going to enable people to get through very easily, pedestrians, once they've been dropped off, to access the departures lounge. And if they're coming out of the arrivals building, they can come straight out onto this area, and then they can connect up and catch their bus or coach. Or they can get their taxi in the taxi ranks here where the taxi drop-off is. There's a lot more room for these, now 4 lines for taxi drop-offs, 3 places for bus and coach. The proposed cycle stands are now moved to a much better location in this area here. You can see that landscape tree area here and here to be retained. So it should be a pleasant walk through for people, and a very well thought through interchange, working out how traffic can come in and out of this and back through Herncourt Lane. The Beryl bikes, I expect you're familiar with, that you hire and take different parts of Bournemouth. So this is an example. It's not how it's going to be on this particular airport, but it's an example of a Beryl bike stand which is proposed. And this is the style of the cycle parking cover, and you can see stands where you can lock up your bicycles either side, which you'll see shortly is a bit different from what we have there currently. So currently, the existing barrel bikes just have this painted area and they are kind of scattered loosely on the airport. So what's coming is a lot better, a lot more thought through. The existing public cycle, again, hasn't really got all the stands, so they're all propped up against a bar and it's all a bit untidy, and that is going to be a lot better. But I believe this may stay, that is going to stay as a facility, maybe for overspill for other, for the new one, which will be up at the transport interchange. So this is a view of the car park right opposite the terminal entrance, and just to give you the context and see that that's how the people that come by car will also access the crossing points. And so here is one of the crossing points that leads to a footpath for staff, which can go right down to the end of Herne Court Lane at the Parley Lane junction. The next thing to point out is the need for a red zone and red route. So Herne Quarry access, which I identified at the beginning, it has double yellow lines at present, and there have been numerous complaints about, since the airport has been charging for drop-off, which it's entitled to do, but since it's done that, the consequences are that the public take matters into their own hands and park on double yellow lines whilst waiting for passengers to come out from flights, which is a hazard. It's not safe and it's dangerous. We also have here an example of one of the quarry lorries coming out of Herne Court Lane, so you can see that they are quite substantial vehicles, and if it's blocked here by cars, it's just dangerous and a hazard for everybody. So on the basis of that, it was decided that a red route is necessary, and that has been secured with Section 106 contributions recommended with this scheme. Also, double red lines is included in that instead of the double yellow lines, and security cameras will be needed to enforce any parking on the red lines. So that all comes through in the Section 106 contributions. This is just examples of a red route, one Newcastle Airport, because it's rural and it's got the double red lines. So just to give an idea of what that would be like, and an idea of the kind of signs that are likely to be put up as well, which will form part of that contribution. A red route clearway, no stopping, and just details about traffic compliance and cameras. So finally, the transport contributions to be secured by the Section 106 agreement also include a habitat management and monitoring fee, but primarily they're about the transport. And you can see there the prices, you know, like the £5,000 for active travel barrel bikes and scooters, £500,000 for a bus contribution to be index linked. And this will be, in addition, we already have a bus service which is supposed to be hourly for 12 hours, 7 till 7. It hasn't been happening. There have been agreed changes to that in the past through monitoring because there weren't significant numbers, but that needs to be reinstated very shortly. But that is a matter that's controlled under that 2007 application. So we can't get amongst passenger bus services, but for this application, staff using the bus service has never been addressed before. And therefore there is an uplift of 233 staff potential for, there's 300 there at present. So for that number of staff to then be utilising buses, which may well have to come before and after the start times of the passenger, this £500,000 has been secured to support that. And bus fare contribution of £60,000, which is to give incentive for staff to not come by car, but to come by bus. Camera enforcement equipment is estimated to cost about £80,000. And there's also the maintenance costs of that. Transport contribution of £90,000 for the traffic regulation order to be made and the red lines to be put down. And the habitat management monitoring fee is for maintaining all those habitats that are secured by biodiversity net gain, like the trees that you saw, which will, and new tree planting to make sure that it stays in place. So the other issues that are important to consider in this application in particular are air quality, but it's air quality in relation to the transport and air quality in relation to the construction of the buildings. Air quality in relation to the terminal itself and aircraft, anything to do with aircraft and air quality is not part of this consideration of this application. That is considered under the 2007 permission. However, our air quality environmental health officer did examine the whole aspect of how far we've got with the freight air traffic that had never been counted in passenger numbers before. So she has reviewed that, and it has demonstrated that the numbers are actually less than anticipated, and the numbers are less than anticipated previously in 2007 because aircraft are more fuel efficient now, and all vehicles are now more fuel efficient than they were. So the actual aircraft noise is the aircraft, sorry, I lost my thread there. The air quality aspects for aircraft are much lower now and are well within the targets that have been set. The only concern, therefore, is dust, and that was identified, and with dampening down during construction, suppressing the dust in the air, that will be controlled through the construction environment management plan. Noise, again, 2007 permission has controlled all matters about aircraft noise through the annual monitoring report. The scope of this application is confined to operational noise arising during construction of the new buildings. No conditions are required for noise other than transport movements and times for construction, which are established in the construction environment management plan. And what you'll find when you get to the conditions on the end of the report is we've combined the construction environment management plan from environmental health with the construction transport management plan, and it's called a construction transport environment management plan, so that all these matters can be considered together in one and discharged in one piece, which makes it a lot more straightforward. Energy efficiency is another important aspect, and in this respect the airport has continued to use the prefabricated metal modular curtain wall system, which is energy and thermally efficient, and passive ventilation measures and air source heat pumps, and it achieves a 2% carbon reduction. It also incorporates its design, also joins in and consolidates the overall terminal. This is the example of the thermal efficient cladding panels and how it appears. So, having considered all the relevant aspects, I've just popped up a slide here to show that the scheme is policy compliant in relation to all these policies of the Christchurch and East Dorset local plan. So I will just list them off. So sustainable development, there's so much more sustainable benefits from the cycle provision that we have, from the buses and the access for buses in and out of the system. The transport improvements that have presented much of that. Are more sustainable with air source heat pumps in the roof of the new infill extension, I believe, and the in the solar panels on the arrivals building. So the vision for Bournemouth Airport is being brought into effect with this all these which I showed you on the strategy plan. The infrastructure for the airport is being provided, which is needed for the passengers coming. Safeguarding of biodiversity. We have a biodiversity net gain plan, and it's been agreed, and the majority of the planting can be replanted on site, but acid grassland is going to have to go off site, and potentially maybe a couple of trees off site, but we haven't quite got to that detailed level yet. That comes in the discharge of that. But it's been satisfied by your ecologist. Protected Dorset heathlands are not affected, as was shown in the Habitats Regulation Assessment and the screening opinion. Sustainable construction, which I've just described in with the sustainable development, so apologies for that, but that's the air source heat pumps and the thermal insulation and low water levels. Renewable energy is the solar panels, the flood and drainage aspects. These haven't been finalised yet, but we have got to the point with the sustainable urban drainage that it's recognised that it can be achieved. The position that the infiltration tanks were suggested to be was not correct. It was under the building and it has to move outside into the outside area of the terminal. That will be done, and that will be discharged via a condition once it's been accepted. Exactly where that comes from, but the whole process of what it will be is accepted in principle. Design of the new development is already as it was shown to be in the strategy, and the design officer's comments that you'll read in the reports are very much in favour of the application, supportive of all the sustainable construction methods, and also the appearance of the material and how that brings the whole development together as one. The landscaping you saw in that, that we've got a lot of landscaping introduced around the buffers of the transport interchange and giving a pleasant access through into the terminal and arrivals building. So, planning balance, the benefits in this situation of what's coming forward, which was always proposed in your local plan policies, they outweigh the harms, and any harms that have been identified can all be mitigated by conditions such as the sustainable drainage system and all the other matters that I've mentioned, the environment management plan for transport and for for the building and the pollution matters. So environmental objective of the NPPF requires making effective use of land using natural resources prudently, minimising waste and pollution, mitigating and adapting to climate change, and energy efficiency. This application meets this objective by effective use of land, by consolidating the building within the existing terminal, environmental mitigation, new tree and grassland planting on and off-site with biodiversity units in Dorset, sustainable energy, air source heat pumps providing 50% of energy consumption on site, and solar panels providing 6% energy reduction, and low flow water in the terminal building. The building is climate resilient, it's designed to last a long time, passive design, thermal insulation to aid carbon reduction, low flow water to minimise waste, energy efficient building materials. Increase in sustainable transport options to reduce the carbon emissions. There are no harmful or adverse impacts that have been identified that cannot be mitigated through the conditions. The economic objective of the NPPF is building a strong responsive economy, which would be satisfied through the expansion of buildings and the provision of the transport interchange, improving the productivity of the airport, benefiting the wider business and tourism economy. Also increasing business to bus and transport companies and employment of 233 additional staff to service the increasing passenger numbers. And finally, the social objective of the NPPF is also met by the airport in supporting a strong, vibrant and healthy community with accessible services which contribute to supporting the community's social and cultural well-being. And that's my end slide of where those 4 extensions are coming to develop to enable all this to happen.
Thank you, Ms McCarthy. It's a very complex presentation, and I think we just needed that detail, so appreciate that. So, Ms Hollyoak for speakers.
Thank you. We have 2 objectors who are unable to attend who have provided written statements. The first is from Ian Searle of School Lane, Thorney Bransgore. I am a regular user of the airport and its facilities and am keen to see it thrive and prosper. However, I would like the Council to please carefully consider the following infrastructure issues which should be considered before approving any application in which I feel have not been factored into the project. 1. The infrastructure surrounding the airport is poor and the proposals only deal with on-site improvements. Whilst the proposals for more parking, barrel bikes and a bus service are laudable, access from Herne and Christchurch via Avon Causeway is already subject to major traffic problems, and the additional vehicle traffic will simply add to this. 2. It is a brave person who will cycle on these roads to the airport. 3. It is unlikely passengers will be taking bikes with luggage, so staff will be the only users. 4. Buses will simply add further congestion to these routes, and given the significant and increasing number of late night, early morning departures, I suspect users will favour taking cars. 5. The way the airport batches arrivals causes pinch points for those accessing and leaving the airport. On a wider point, I note the application states noise pollution from arriving and departing flights is not considered and has been dealt with in previous applications. The tripling of passenger throughput will inevitably impact on aircraft noise, and I feel no expansion of the airport should be considered until noise issues have been thoroughly addressed and signed off. I also request that consultation is extended to areas with geographic features that accentuate aircraft noise, such as the noise we experience over Thorney Hill. Villages within the New Forest have been excluded from past consultations, and given the importance of tourism on the region, I suggest a wide consultation net is cast across all villages affected by arrivals and departures, again before any expansion of the terminal is approved. Second statement is from Russell Horn, who is the chairman of Brockenhurst Parish Council. Noise from aircraft approaching Bournemouth Airport has become a major detriment impacting residents of Brockenhurst and has increased significantly as air traffic has recovered following COVID. Residents are frequently awoken in the early morning, as well as being subject to considerable noise during the day by aircraft flying directly overhead the village when on approach to Bournemouth's westerly runway. Large cargo aircraft are particularly problematic and appear disproportionately likely to directly overfly the village with high engine power. Complaints about aircraft noise have escalated rapidly. Brockenhurst Parish Council has made representations to the airport asking for aircraft to be routed to join the approach by air traffic control at a point of 7.5 miles from a base leg. This would avoid overflying Brockenhurst and route over mostly unoccupied land. Brockenhurst sits between approximately 10 and 12 miles on a straight-in approach, and we would like this to be avoided in routine operations. We have also asked for continuous descent approach procedures to be mandated and facilitated by air traffic control in normal circumstances, along with minimum approach speeds of 160 knots to a 4 or 5 mile approach. These measures would significantly reduce the noise footprint and a standard procedure at most airports, especially busy ones. Sadly, with no direct regulatory requirement to take account of Brockenhurst Parish Council views, the airport has not acted on these proposals. It is surprising that the New Forest National Park has not been directly consulted. We are well aware that this is a planning application related to facility upgrades rather than about aircraft routing and approach procedures. However, over the years, with no willingness from the airport operator to agree to reasonable requests or follow standard noise mitigation measures used by most airports, the only lever we see to ensure reasonable behaviour is with conditions or legal agreements attached to planning decisions. These need not affect the commercial development of the airport at all. To reiterate, they are normal elsewhere. The approach procedures described would radically reduce noise impacts on inhabited areas and any other areas overflown, provide some protection to Brockenhurst residents as flight volumes increase further, and have environmental benefits in terms of aircraft fuel burn reduction. We therefore urge the Council to set conditions of this nature on any planning consent provided, to ensure the airport remains a good neighbour and operates with the support of local people affected by it. We would be happy to provide further input on approach and departure procedures that can mitigate the impact on other local people living near the airport whom you represent or are neighbours to. Speakers in support, we have Mr. Robert Barnes and Mr. Steve Gill, who are here in person. If you'd like to come forward.
Good morning. My name is Steve Gill and I am the Managing Director of Bournemouth Airport. I would like to thank members for the opportunity to address you today. Firstly, I would like to reiterate that this planning application relates primarily to the development of passenger terminal and associated facilities. It does not seek to change or amend any of the existing planning limits in place granted back in 2007 and 2010. The terminal expansion is required so as the airport can, 1, meet new regulatory requirements to install next generation central search security equipment, which requires more space and is more efficient. 2, continue to provide our customers with the right level of service alongside the delivery of growth objectives. I am confident that the significant direct job creation identified in the committee report will be achieved and hopefully exceeded, and that hundreds of additional jobs will be created in the wider economy through the multiplier effects. This development will deliver inward investment, job creation, regional connectivity and choice. If approved, this project will lead to significant private sector investment into a regional asset, forming part of a wider £50 million strategic investment plan. The airport site is already one of the largest employment areas in Dorset, and based upon a recent research undertaken by York Aviation, provides around £200 million of GVA to this region. Aviation is a very competitive industry, and unless we are able to provide the right level of choice and associated service, we risk losing the benefits we've achieved in recent years and the opportunities associated with this project. A successful region needs a successful airport, and we believe the granting of this planning application is therefore of vital regional importance. I'll now hand you over to Rob Barnes, our planning consultant, who has assisted in bringing forward this scheme.
Thank you. And following Steve's comments, I'll just make 4 planning observations. So whilst Steve explained that this is critical to the airport, it's not an extensive scheme in its scale. Your officer's report shows how it mostly comprises infill development between existing buildings, with some extension at one end of the terminal, consistent with long-standing and well-established master plan aspirations here. We listened to your urban design officer's comments and made changes to our original submission, and we're pleased with the comments at paragraph 128 of the report, which recognise these changes as great improvements with benefits for pedestrian access, public realm and landscaping. Second, we're also pleased there are no objections from statutory consultees. Often for proposals like these, the officer must grapple with concerns from consultees, sometimes with objections, and then reach a finely balanced recommendation. Here, that's not the case, and the positive recommendation is clear. We've worked hard with your officers to ensure all technical questions are answered. Consultees have, fairly, understood that this scheme is focused on better serving passengers and meeting legislative and security requirements, and they've responded favourably to that. Third, we want to emphasise that from the outset, there have been two key elements to this project: expanding the terminal, but also the sustainable travel improvements alongside it. Paragraphs 178 and 181 of the officer's report are important in this regard. They recognise the considerable physical improvements proposed through a new transport interchange and infrastructure for buses, taxis, bikes and pedestrians. They also recognise the significant investment secured for bus services and safety measures. The sustainable access improvements provided through the scheme are significant. Finally and fundamentally, your officer's report is clear that this development accords with the development plan and important aspects of national policy. The report supports making a positive decision in accordance with the development plan. Moreover, alongside this development plan support, the report additionally highlights important benefits of the scheme with investment, business, tourism and jobs. Steve outlined how critical the scheme is for the airport. With that, the significant benefits, improved sustainable access, no technical concerns and compliance with the development plan, we hope you can support the application, and thank you for hearing us today.
Thank you for the time. So, Mr. McCarthy, is there anything which was said by any parties that you want to comment on? Thinking about the Brockenhurst Parish Council in particular, what would best approach? Thank you.
Yes, so the letter from the Brockenhurst Parish Council refers to matters of noise and flights and flight paths. And as you'll recall, at the beginning of this application, I highlighted that the 2007 application is the application that controls all matters about those flight paths, noise, routes. And I appreciate it is a concern enough for them to raise that here, but it's not a matter that we can consider or you can consider as members coming under the control of this application. So, but it can be noted and forwarded about for noise monitoring purposes in accordance with that 2007 agreement.
I appreciate that, and obviously the manager or director is here today. He's listened to that, so hopefully you make contact with the Parish Council. So questions?
Yeah, so the question I have, and the report is really, really thorough, so I may have missed it in report. With the section 106 for the bus, is that just until the money runs out? Or is it a number of years, or how does that work?
Yeah, I'd just like to pass over to Jocelyn if she's happy to, but because she's negotiated all the transport. Any questions on the transport matters? It's really good for Joss to.
Thank you for that question. So we worked with Moorbus, who is the current bus provider facilitating the airport, along with the transport consultants who are working on behalf of the airport, to look at the staff shift patterns, and also what they did is they looked at where the staff live. So we were able to plot where routes are likely to go. And basically all this information was put together, and Moorbus came up with how much money it would cost on a yearly basis. And the idea is that you give the biggest chunk of money up front to get the bus operating. And then the idea is that it becomes more self-sufficient. So as the years progress, more people are going to go, oh yeah, there's the bus then to the airport. So then the uplift with not only staff, you'll get passengers as well. And so we've looked at a 5-year. Now, 5 years was based also with Bournemouth Hospital. They also looked at 5 years. And it seemed a reasonable amount to get people aware of the bus operating. Now, the airport has an obligation already to operate the bus service. And what we're looking at is an uplift, an enhanced bus service. And not to just give all the money on year one and then it drop off, but actually just to trickle the money. And this is the amount of money that Moorbus had said it would take to get that bus service operational.
I had a follow-up question. You answered half of it, but I'm going to read the whole thing and then
Sure.
you can answer the second half.
Okay.
So can you clarify why the current bus service, which is in the previous section 106, doesn't run? Do we need to tighten the conditions on that?
So the bus service that was secured under the 2007 planning application is still a live section 106. So we can't, as you say, like tighten a condition because that is still the 2007 section 106, which is down to be enforced basically. So what happened is the bus service operated and the airport didn't see the uplift in passengers that was expected. So it's got planning permission for 3 million passengers, which looking back through the old history of the application was predicted by sort of 2015, and we're only looking at 1.2 million now. So it hasn't happened, and that was financial crash and COVID. It just affected the projection of passengers. So where bus services have reduced when yellow buses previously operated, it just hasn't ramped up again. Now, that's something we are aware of and we are working with the airport, but we are concentrating at the moment on this planning application, and where we see an uplift in staff, I need to make sure that there are travel options for staff, that not everybody decides to drive, because that's the only option at the moment. So in a long way of saying it, that at the moment we're trying to look at an enhanced bus service, but we are aware there should be a bus service operating at the moment, and I can't tighten any conditions because it's linked to an old planning application.
But it is in the 106 in this one.
The new contributions are, but they still have the requirement to provide a bus service as per the 2007 agreement. And what I've just put in is a reminder that they have an obligation, because the mitigation of 3 million passengers was to provide an hourly bus service between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. That isn't operating at the moment. I haven't got the answers why, because that's not down to BCP. But what I'm trying to do is trying to enhance what's there at the moment, which is only 2 services in the morning and 3 in the afternoon, so that it can at least factor in the staff travel patterns and shift patterns, sorry.
Okay, Councillor Rice.
Just carrying on from the bus provision. So do we know anything about car parking provision for staff at the airport, for example? Is it easy? Is it free? Are they introducing any restrictions to encourage people to move onto bus?
Yes, very good question. Yes, at the moment, car parking is provided on site and it's free of charge. And that's the reason why I've put active travel contributions a part of this section 106, because what I wanted to do is put a better level playing field, because I don't see why staff should travel and get free parking whilst people who choose to travel by bus have to pay. So we've been able to negotiate an active travel fund, which means that staff can apply and get subsidised bus tickets. To be able to, as I said, that level playing field to give more options. And also with the Beryl, there's bundles for staff to be able to choose to apply to get those bundles to be able to use the Beryl, so e-scooters and also the e-bikes as well. Again, trying to put that level playing field, because it's the the applicant's choice to provide free parking for staff. And what I don't want to see is an uplift. Currently, we've got 90% of staff travelling via vehicle. And if we have 90% of future staff that we're talking about today, that's an additional 210 cars on the network. So what I'm trying to do is provide more mitigation, so enhancements such as the bus and the barrel, to try and encourage staff to choose sustainable travel modes.
But just to confirm then, those additional staff members will be offered free parking. And can you also clarify how much of a subsidy they're going to be given? Because if I was working there, as we've heard, well, from one resident, but I know for myself, it's not, you're sometimes taking your life into your own hands if you cycle there. So even with cycle provision on site that may be secure, and the barrel bikes, if you can't get off the site to where you live, if you're a member of staff, I'm just concerned if there's free car parking there. Well, I suppose I would like to know. I think the detail is important here to understand whether it's actually going to work or not. As we heard with the 2007 scheme, it hasn't worked. How much of a subsidy are the members of staff going to be given for the bus? Because it needs to be cheaper than travelling by car, and often it's not. So that detail would be great.
Yeah, I agree. It needs to be that level playing field, and currently there isn't that level playing field. It is just free parking. Now that is the applicant's choice. I have discussed this with the transport consultants about trying to find ways to to improve the uplift of sustainable travel. Now I don't have exactly how much of a subsidy. There's a £5,000 lump sum, and through they have a travel plan. And so the part of the conditions is that they come to us with how are they going to provide it with staff. Now I foresee staff applying and saying, I want to travel by bus, and through their travel plan coordinator to be able to sort out, this is the fund and how do we actually offer staff the incentives.
So just to clarify, that £5,000, that's the subsidy for all of those 250 staff?
It is, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, but at the moment you've got 90% driving, so, and there's no incentive for staff. So what we're trying to do, so there's no incentive for the staff at the moment. So what we're trying to do is have an incentive for the uplift in staff, because as I said, we can't continue with 90% of staff travelling.
Yeah, 5,000 doesn't seem very much to me.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, just going along those lines, I'm thinking about people that travel by car because they've got like a school run to do before they go to work, or picking up children and things like that. Also disabled members of staff that, would find using a bus quite difficult, or they're just not on a bus route. And I wouldn't like to see those people being discriminated against. Yeah. It's all very well trying to push people towards the bus, but some people can't use the bus because they've got other commitments, you know what I mean? Such as children.
So what it's about is providing a level playing field for those who do choose to travel via bus or by bike or barrel, as well as car. So it's providing options, because at the moment the main option I would say is driving. But as you saw in the presentation of the photograph I took on site, that people are travelling to the airport via bike, and so it's making sure that money isn't a barrier. So we've got the £5,000 before active travel, and also we've got the £60,000 towards the bus fare contributions as well. So altogether within the travel plan, it just means that, as you say, people who want to travel by car and need to can, but also people who choose to travel by sustainable travel modes can as well, and money isn't an issue.
Thank you for explaining that. Yeah, I understand now. Yeah.
Okay, thanks for that. For me, it's probably one for Mr. Edwards. But are there any? Obviously, you've done data capture for the Herne Bridge roundabout and the access that way, the traffic lights going to the quarry and to the airport. Are there any need for further enhancements, which those data suggests? Thank you.
I can answer that if that helps. So as part of the travel, the TA, which is the transport assessment, which the applicants and transport consultants submitted. They undertook junction capacity studies, and these confirmed that these junctions are not at capacity. So back in 2007, their transport consultants, which is a different transport consultant, put together the mitigation and the travel demand for up to 3 million passengers. Now, because this is a long time ago, we asked them to update it, because we wanted to see actually what the junctions are running at the moment. And very detailed in the transport assessment was the background data of traffic flow, and also what the predicted traffic will be with this planning permission in place, so the 2026, with the additional vehicles on the network, and it confirmed that there was no issues with that junction capacity. Now, work has recently been carried out for enhancements, which through the growth bid, so that is Herne Roundabout and Blackwater Junction. So work has already carried out to improve that traffic flow, but nothing was highlighted in this application that further work was needed.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that. So if there's Councillor Martin. Okay.
Yeah. I'm thinking about this the red route around the airport, which sort of because that's because of the response of local people to having to pay to drop people off. And I'm just thinking, wouldn't it be more efficient to just say to people, look, you've got 20 minutes, you can just stop and drop somebody off and drive off again, rather than have this faff of all the red routes outside the airport. I don't know how much to charge for a quick drop off, but it just seems crazy to me. And also, this is an amenity for local people. It's wonderful we've got that at the airport there, but quite often when I'm looking to fly, I look at Southampton, because I haven't got to faff about, it just annoys me having to pay a local drop off when it's something so close, and I've got to pay. Somebody to drop me off has got to pay. You know what I mean?
I don't think it's part of the application, but I think most airports do this fee, and it's a choice if people pay the £5 drop off, or they choose a different method of transport.
But it just impacts around there as well, having to have the big red zone and everything. I just thought that does impact. That is a planning issue. But I'm just saying. The other thing I wanted to ask about is actually about picking up and dropping off right outside the terminal buildings, because it seems to me from looking at the plans that the parking is going to be to one side. It's going to be away from the terminal buildings. I'm thinking about people in wheelchairs, having to sort of get on a bus, if there's a coach, from the terminal building to where I'm talking about passengers now, not staff. Although it would also impact staff as well. If you're going to have a flight and you're in a wheelchair, or you've got children and things like that, it's easier to just get off outside the main building as opposed to going into the car park to park. So the other thing is there going to be a valid parking service? Is there going to be a coach to and from the car park for people that can't walk all that way?
I'll try and answer those questions.
Yeah,
First of all, with the red route, the reason that we're looking to install the red route is because of the behaviour that is being triggered since the airport started charging for the drop-offs. As you were saying, you could have 20 minutes free, for example. That doesn't occur. Now, we can't control that because it's private land, and it's up to the applicant to choose however much they want to choose for people to pay. That's outside of scope. We can't we can't change that. Now, what's happened is since there's been the £5 drop off for a 2 minutes, you're on site, because people are human and want to avoid paying, they are stopping at the junction at dangerous locations, And as Claire mentioned in the presentation, particularly the quarry is a concern because their access is regularly blocked. I regularly get updates of near hit data, and we're talking about 150 to 200 near misses a week, which is where their access is blocked. They ask people to move, they get abuse. There's problems of they can't actually get in and out that access. And so the reason the red route we put in is to tell people it's not safe to stop here. We've got double yellow lines with blips at the moment. It's ignored. So we're going to the next stage up, which is done elsewhere. Claire showed, you've got Bristol Airport, you've got Newcastle Airport. It's what a lot of other local authorities have done in response to the behaviour, which is in response to the charging schedule that has happened on site. So whilst this application is looking at the increase in staff, what I said back to the transport consultants is we know this behaviour goes on. We know from the local ward councillors as well as local residents and the parish that this goes on. And now's an opportunity to try and address the highway safety concerns and to try and make it safer. But on the same side, providing that bus service, which drops you off at the terminal at the airport. And we've also agreed, the applicants agreed that there is no charging for the public buses so that they can go on site without a charge. And then that facilitates pedestrians and passengers and staff to be able to get off the bus actually on site, which is safe, rather than walking through Herne Court Lane in the middle of the carriageway, dicing with vehicles, which is unsafe. So that's the reason why we're wanting to put the red route in, to improve that highway safety risk.
My point was, it's caused by the £5 charge. If you get rid of the £5 charge, you would get rid of the problem.
Yes, you would.
Yeah,
Yes.
do you know what I mean? That's what I was. That was just a food for thought. That's what I was saying.
I agree with you, but we are where we are, and there's no there's no inclination of removing the drop-off fees, which is down to the applicant as that's their land.
Yeah.
So what we're doing at the moment is asking for the red route to be put in, but I have put a caveat with the camera enforcement, mitigation and monitoring to say that if the charging schedule is removed in the future, then they don't need to keep paying for that, because we need to future-proof this. And if chargings carry on, get more expensive, for example, it could make things worse. So now's the time to try and improve that highway safety.
I think the other side I was getting at as well is if you're going to be moving from 1.2 million people arrivals and departures per year up to 3 million. I mean, some people go on holiday and leave their car in the car park. Have we got sufficient parking to allow for that if we've got increased passengers?
So part of this application is an increase of 899 car parking spaces, which has actually already been approved under permitted development. So whilst we're looking at a planning application, there's also permitted development, which they don't need planning permission for. And we have already agreed that 899 additional parking spaces. Now, under the transport assessment, they have clearly demonstrated that demand. So they've showed that it's near capacity, and what they've done is they've worked out the additional staff parking as well as passenger parking, and they've had a look to see how much additional parking is needed. Now, at the moment, 899 parking spaces is what they've shown. However, that's not to say it doesn't change in the future, because they have planning permission for 3 million passengers, and as I said, we're working at sort of 1.2 at the moment. But that's not to say there couldn't be future permitted development inquiry submissions for more parking in the future. But that's nothing we can sort of control at the moment, because they have those permitted development rights.
Yeah, will they have a coach service to take people, because that's quite a car park that big, and with people with luggage and children and things, will there be like at Southampton Airport? I've got like a mini coach service.
Not that I'm aware of.
Oh, because because if you're parked right in the far corner and you're in a wheelchair, that's going to be a hell of a journey for you. From the.
I believe there are some disabled parking spaces.
Oh, cool. Yeah, yeah. That was what I was concerned about, and family places as well. Perhaps just would make it safer. I think for
Councillor Rice.
yeah.
I still have quite a lot of questions. Pedestrian access, is there any pedestrian access to the site yet?
Through Herne Court Lane,
Pedestrian access full stop to the airport
there
for the members of the public?
there is a new footpath that has been installed under permitted development by the applicant recently completed. That is not part of this application because it's permitted development, but there is the pedestrian access through Herne Court Lane. And my concern is that if we don't get the red route sorted, it could increase the amount of people stopping by the quarry, for example, blocking the quarry access, and more people walking into the airport, which is unsafe because of the crossing over and of where the parking is at the moment. So there is pedestrian access. What the applicant has done is improve pedestrian access within the site. Particularly, there's crossing points, as you mentioned, into the car park, and there's a better flow, and there's better pedestrian access over to where the transport interchange will be, which will be covered. Which I think, if anyone stood at the airport in the rain, will appreciate having covered waiting area for the buses as well. So the actual flow of the airport area is significantly improved with pedestrians put first as improved connectivity within the site.
But so basically where the school was, there'll be pedestrian access along that road now instead of having to walk in the carriageway.
On the opposite side.
On the opposite side of the road.
Right, okay. What was my question going to be? So the transport analysis that was done, did that include the projected 3 million passengers?
Is that the junction capacity study?
Yeah.
Yes. However, it had already been done in 2007. And what we're looking at is actually what the capacity is at the moment, because up to 3 million passengers was granted in 2007 with the junction capacity studies. And what we've asked them to do is a today assessment up to what we're looking at today. So yes, it has all been taken into consideration.
And just going on to carbon footprint then of the airport, there hasn't been any mention at all of impacts on carbon footprint. The council has declared a climate emergency. I was just wondering what can be said about that.
Well, again, from the application, I think Ms McCarthy did say the impact of this particular extension, which is all we can look at for this part. Obviously, the wider airport is reviewed, as we said, the annual management meeting about flights. So that's covered there. But for this application, we are just looking at that 2% reduction.
Well, we seem to be looking at the economic benefits of having an increased number of passengers. So I assume that we're taking that into account, the economic benefits of airport expansion. Oh, you're saying it's already agreed, that 3 million.
Well, it's a 207.
It's being added into this application, so it seems odd that that would be added in if that's already agreed.
The passenger numbers are not considered as part of this application. Just the need for increased buildings and services, buildings to accommodate the growth. Yes, that will mean there's more passenger numbers, but the passenger numbers and the carbon reduction is all part of the monitoring from the 2007 agreement, Section 106, which is still relevant and still has to have monitoring.
What carbon monitoring is there then?
I'm not aware of what carbon monitoring there is, but there has to be carbon monitoring. And I know that the environmental health officer is aware of carbon monitoring and was, because I was asking her about the air quality and she was talking about the carbon reduction monitoring. And she was explaining to me that, I mean, I don't know figures and so on, but she was explaining to me that the fact that aircraft have now I don't know if this is carbon or actually this might be nitrogen dioxide, but the aircraft are now using much more fuel efficiencies, and so since 2007, and so are the vehicles coming to the airport. They're not diesel anymore. They're not all the, you know, the vehicles coming, private vehicles coming to the airport are all much more energy efficient and much less carbon emissions, and therefore the figures coming through are much less than it was anticipated in 2007, because there are gains with people using electric vehicles and much more fuel efficiency in aircraft, and even the baggage handling vehicles that go through have to be energy efficient.
I can understand that the building itself is energy efficient. Insulation, heat pumps, solar panels,
Yes.
passive stack ventilation.
So that's the 2%.
However, I'm talking about the carbon footprint, like the carbon footprint specifically, not the carbon, not any carbon dioxide emissions, sort of air pollution wise.
Yeah.
I'm talking about the footprint of moving the aeroplanes around.
No, well, that's outside the red line. The red line of this application is just the terminal buildings and the transport interchange area.
But how can we expect to have 3 million passengers if we're not even aware of what those 3 million passengers will be doing at the site?
Yeah, so I think we're edging into debate now, and obviously, as I say, so there is the monitoring it's taking place all year round. There's regular meetings where noise and pollution is assessed.
So just to clarify, we're not looking at the carbon footprint of this, the implications of this at all, even though the government has declared a climate emergency. And
Only
the climate
the
change
impact within the red line, the actual building impact of extra energy use, but so of the building, but not of more flights.
So just to confirm, we are not looking at the carbon footprint of anything to do with this building whatsoever.
No, we're looking at the building in the red
The building
line.
itself, the construction of the building, if it was empty, it doesn't make any difference whether there's 3 million passengers or not. We're not looking at the difference.
No, so we are looking at the difference of carbon reduction in terms of the transport interchange, and in relation to the encouragement of the sustainable travel, the buses, and the barrel bikes, and the parking facilities for cycles, encouragement of, so there is that aspect, carbon reduction coming forward, because there's more facilities provided to accommodate that. And then also there's the 2% carbon reduction in the building fabric.
So just on the transport interchange then, we're just thinking about mostly the members of staff, potentially the passengers. So have we got any figures on the carbon footprint of those passengers for us to look at and be reassured?
I can't help you on that, but I know that it is monitored by that section 106 agreement in 2007, and we aren't dealing with the passenger numbers in this application.
But just in terms of the carbon footprint of the transport to that transport hub, we don't have any data on the carbon emissions of that transport from, like, I don't imagine in 2007 they requested any data. So I'm just clarifying that
they did. They had a green travel plan. There's a green travel plan in the 2007 application, and there's also carbon emissions reduction. It's in my first slide, so I'll just read out the thing that was there. So carbon management action plan and carbon audit forms part of the original 207 application, 2007, and also so there's the air quality monitoring and for vegetation and nitrogen dioxide levels, and then there's the carbon management action plan and carbon audit, and then there's the green travel plan, surface access for buses and Bournemouth interchange and green travel plan. So all those.
Have you looked at, like, is it possible to see that carbon management plan and see whether there has been a reduction in the carbon footprint? So at the moment we've no idea.
Well,
and it sounds as if the bus subsidy didn't work because the buses stopped at that point.
The bus subsidy is for now, the Section 106 in 2007 was for the airport company to provide the bus service, full stop. There was no subsidy agreed in 2007. It was a continuous bus service between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m, 12 hours a day that should be operating. Now, in hindsight, what they didn't do is they didn't look at the uplift. So you start off with, say, 500,000 passengers, and then what they didn't look is the increase in bus service required as the passenger numbers increased. So when you hit, say, 2 million passengers, that's a very different scenario to, say, 500,000 passengers. And so that's where I'm looking at it now with the staff, and also with the conditions that we're going to be looking at the timetable regularly. But the 2007 Section 106 clearly states that the airport company shall provide the bus service, and there was no contributions agreed. It was just for them to provide it. I'm looking at the contributions now because where we are is that Moorbus are providing a commercial service. That's not the airport providing it, it's Moorbus providing it, a commercial service with work with all the shift patterns, and especially with the increase in staff. So what I'm doing is getting a contribution to enhance the bus service where it should be. We appreciate it's not, but we are where we are, and that's a separate matter.
But we have a carbon management plan, so carbon footprint assessment from 2007, but we're saying that the bus service didn't happen. We're saying they've got free car parking and all the staff members get free car parking. Cycling isn't that realistic to the site. So I'm just, I cannot, like, just from my experience of the airport and using the airport, the 95%, or you said 90% were arriving by car. I don't see how they can have reduced their carbon footprint significantly unless they're relying on electric vehicles, but electric vehicles aren't that great here. And yeah, I don't see how we as a committee can guarantee that the carbon footprint is reducing when we haven't got any data, and there's evidence that their sustainable travel plans haven't worked in the past.
They have an area travel plan, which is the airport and also the business park together. And so that's, there's a forum once a year where Moorbus attend and other business partners attend, and discussed, bus usage, for example, and the airport should be providing incentives and also information to staff and passengers about the bus service that is available. And you mentioned about with cycling, well, my photograph showed people are attending and parking their bikes there and travelling to the airport. We have got the shared footway and cycleway that runs around the perimeter of the airport, and at the forums people are saying that they want to cycle, and Beryl, we've got the data to show how many trips have been made from the Beryl Bay, which isn't in a very good location, in all honesty, because you've got to actually step over a barrier to get to the Beryl base at the moment. But what Beryl are telling us is actually there's a very good usage of Beryl there. On average, people are doing a journey of about 7 kilometres. So we know how far people are travelling and by which bike, and it tends to be, especially with the electric bikes have come in, that more people are going. And I understand people are saying you're not going to be attending, traveling to the airport with all your suitcases and everything. That's not who we're aiming for. It's more the staff who are telling us they do want to cycle. And it's making sure that we've got facilities on site to allow that, because as you saw, the cycle parking facilities is not great. So we're getting enhanced cycle facilities, as well as the Beryl Parklet, as well as the lump sum for mitigation to try and improve that sustainable travel that isn't really happening at the moment. And we've got that travel plan so we can monitor it. And as mentioned, this is a legacy application that we've inherited. And we're trying to make those improvements so that it is more sustainable, as you're mentioning.
Okay, thanks for that. Any last questions?
Oh.
Councillor Martin.
Just one last question. The departures lounge, which you skimmed, I mean, you'd shown us engineering drawings, so it wasn't clear from the drawings. But and it sounds a bit crazy, but from the departure lounge, will passengers be able to enjoy views of the planes taking on and off, and that will they, are there windows in that end bit? That's what I'm saying, facing the airport, or is it just plain steel?
Yeah, no, in those arch bits that you could see, there were glazing panels, yes. So I
So
understand
the
that, yeah.
passengers can sit in the
Yeah,
lounge and watch the
should be
planes
able to
taking
watch
off.
the planes
That's,
take off.
that's a deal breaker for me. That's an airport.
Councillor Rice.
Thanks.
Just in terms of the economic benefits, are we taking those into account for this planning committee? It was stated that there's economic benefits.
Well, it's all in the planning balance, so
It
everything's
can be
in
taken
there.
into account.
Okay.
Okay. So I was just looking at some submissions to the government in terms of airport expansion, and there's studies that have been done to show, well, the data over the last 2 decades, business use of air travel has dramatically collapsed, especially since COVID, which I imagine everybody in the room can understand why with the use of Zoom and Teams, and it makes sense. And that the UK is sending 3 times as many people from the UK as tourists out of the country as it is bringing in to the country. So the economic benefits of airport expansion is often used as a reason for creating expansion, because it's thought that they will boost the local economy. But this evidence is suggesting that actually it encourages more British tourists to leave the country and spend their money elsewhere. And so there has been
I think this is more of a debate, so than a question, because it can't be really answered.
Well, have we got anybody from economic development on here?
No,
No.
I'd say it's obviously
But
job
one of the
creation.
submissions, isn't it?
The main thing we're looking about is job creation in the report.
Oh, okay. Well, I suppose one of the applicants did speak about hundreds of other jobs that were created, and I'm not convinced, and I'm also concerned about the number of local people that could be spending their time here and enjoying and boosting the local economy and facilities rather than flying away. I think it's relevant, but we don't have anybody to speak on that, maybe.
Nothing more to say, but it is mainly the job creation there. So I think if there's no more questions, we will go to the debate. Obviously, being on Christchurch Borough, we had regular updates and planning applications, so we are obviously aware of the 2007 master plan, and we had subsequent applications coming forward, and I think it's good to see this as the next step. Councillor Williams.
Thank you. I see this as a benefit to the community at large, and if for any reason this didn't happen, people would just travel to Heathrow, Gatwick, Stansted, and burn up all that energy and cost a lot more money to do so. So to me, it's a no-brainer. And if we were in a position to do so, I'd propose we accept it.
Okay, thank you. Well, I think Councillor Williams, we will accept your recommendation. And Councillor Clements, did you want to put your mic on? Just sorry.
Sorry, Chair. Yeah, I'll second that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Nanava.
I agree with Councillor Williams, and while I also agree with Felicity here beside me, that we might prefer people to stay local for their holidays, it's not going to happen, and they will travel abroad, whether they've got to go to Gatwick or Heathrow. And I've seen improvements like this in lots of regional airports, and it's always a bonus when a new building opens up and there's more space to sit down, less congestion when queuing, and I think I understand the commercial reasons for charging the drop-off fee. One regional airport that I frequent in Ireland charges a departure tax of €10 specifically for airport development. because I think it's it's quite difficult to get money for airport improvements. So I would support this application, granting this application as well.
Okay, thank you for that. Councillor Martin?
Yeah, I think I would also support for the reasons that Councillor Nevedo, I can't see him. Thank you, as suggested as well, and the original proposers and seconders. Yeah, I would support it. I think it's a good idea, and I think it's certainly a very good idea to use that space between the buildings to because that looks ugly at the moment. If you go in there, it looks very bitty when you look at the airport now, and I think it will make it look smoother. My only concerns were when you get more passengers and you've got a large airport, I think that the owners are going to have to really think about getting particularly disabled passengers and passengers with children to and from the car parking spaces, either some sort of valet parking system or a coach. There's a regular coach at Southampton Airport. I think they are going to have to think about that in the future. That would be my only concern, to make sure that disabled people and families are catered for, to make it a popular airport. But I fully agree that people are going to go on holiday anyway, and why not go from Bournemouth? That's great. It would be better for us as well. Hopefully we'll get more destinations.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Lepedwin?
Thank you. I'm a bit counterintuitive on this. As someone who almost never flies and certainly is not wildly enthusiastic about seeing increased levels of passengers flying, but actually I am supporting this application because it seems to me that given that the agreement, the decision has been made to allow expansion in terms of flight numbers and passenger numbers, it only makes sense to improve the facilities and the transport arrangements for those who are going to be coming and using the airport and leaving the airport. If we refuse this and say stick with the buildings and all the transport arrangements as they are, status quo, but the numbers do continue to expand, it's just saying to the staff and the passengers, you're going to have to lump it and have very second-class facilities and traffic congestion and all that sort of thing. So I'm happy to support this on that basis.
Yeah, I'm happy to support it. It's just my only hesitation is that the fact that they haven't managed to sort of tie back down the buses since 2007. I don't think what's in there is necessarily going to sort of tie them down any more than obviously the payments that are going out. So, but without any sort of clear sort of pathway, I'd love to increase the hours to 15 hours a day, so that it covered more of the hours. But I think you're going to be tied up with the 106 from 07 on that. So, so yeah, but so support it with reluctance about these buses.
Okay, thank you for that, Councillor Wright.
Yeah, I don't agree with granting planning permission for this. I'd like to make a few comments in terms of the carbon footprint of the expansion of the airport and the planned uses for why we were building the extension. The Climate Change Committee, the government's advisory committee, has stated that no further airport expansion should occur until a comprehensive UK-wide passenger capacity management framework is in place to control aviation emissions and non-CO2 effects. It states that airport expansions are currently inconsistent with net zero targets, as emissions from aviation are difficult to abate and the sector's ability to reduce emissions is falling behind the necessary pace. In terms of the capacity management, it does suggest that there is the capacity to expand passenger numbers without expanding airports, and looking at the efficiency of the usage of airports. I'm not convinced that this is a sustainable development and does not fit with KS1, because I'm not convinced that we're doing anything very different from 2007 in terms of being able to encourage people to not use their car and use other forms of transport that are just as convenient as using the car. So in terms of the subsidy, if you add £60,000 plus £5,000 for all of those new members of staff, it comes to £256 per person for 1 year. So that's all the money used up. So that if they're working full time, that would be £1 a day. The bus is, I would suggest that that is going to be cheaper to travel by car than to travel by car. And I think we got confirmation from the officers that that is likely to be the case. And so I don't feel that it fits with sustainable development, and we've got no evidence that the active travel plan that the airport is suggesting will actually be significantly different. So for that reason, I can't support it. We've also declared a climate emergency. This seems to, we haven't got evidence of the carbon footprint of the decision we're making today, so I feel that we shouldn't be making a decision. And in terms of air pollution, as we know from the incinerator application, well, actually, that was
Councillor Rice, if you
Western.
keep it focused.
We know that there is no monitoring of micro particulates, so particularly harmful particulate matter that is so small it passes through the placenta into a developing baby's brain. We do not monitor that, and the government does not monitor that.
That's beyond this application. So
it's beyond
thank you,
any
Councillor Rice.
application, because we don't monitor it.
So obviously I think we're near to making a vote. Planning officers come in first.
Sorry, just to come back on the point Councillor Rice is making, I think you're conflating two different issues here. The fact is they have consent in 2007. That consent allows them to have up to 3 million passengers. We can't revisit that decision. This application is about improving the passenger experience at the hotel, at the airport. So they're extending the existing buildings to make the airport more efficient, more attractive and better for passengers. We are taking the opportunity to improve the sustainable transport measures, which is an additional benefit. But if they wanted to, they can operate that airport with up to 3 million passengers per year, irrespective of whether this application goes through or not. Just to also come back on your points about the carbon management, looking at the section 106 for the 2007 consent, if you look at Schedule 10, they are required to submit a carbon management plan within 12 months of the commencement of that consent, which they would have done. And that includes things like measures to reduce carbon emissions, measures to increase the use of renewable energy, carbon offset scheme, phased introduction of carbon neutral for ground vehicles, and also they are required to, this audit and report has to be updated every 5 years in perpetuity. So they've committed to that as part of the 2007 consent. So that deals with all of the carbon aspects you're dealing with. But fundamentally, that's a bit of a red herring for this consent, because we are just looking at improving the passenger experience for the existing airport. They can operate up to 3 million passengers from that airport on that consent, and we can't revisit that decision because that's already been taken, and we're just looking at the implications of the extensions to this airport from a physical point of view, and then the sustainable transport measures, which are an added benefit.
Thanks for clarifying that. That was what you would say. One point, if you want to come back, Councillor Rice.
Yeah, that was useful clarification. However, throughout the presentation, we were given a lot of evidence as to why this was a good thing to be doing in terms of improving the number of passengers. But I still don't feel reassured that there's any evidence that the way that the active travel plan is being done will mean that the members of staff are arriving by any form other than the majority by private vehicle.
Okay, thank you. So we've had the proposal by Councillor Williams to approve as set out, seconded by Councillor Clements. So to vote now for approval.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
To vote against,
1.
and that's everyone. So that approval is accepted. Thank you. We'll just have a 5-minute break. Keep it to 5 minutes, please. Thank you. And we're off. Okay, welcome back. Now we're on item 6B, the Cafe Southbourne Promenade, and this is being presented by Mr. Davies.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, this proposal for the bistro, well, it was called Bistro on the Beach site, but it's now called Sobo Beach. This was approved about a year ago by the Planning Committee. Let me just show you the location. This is a location, Chair. It's on Southbourne Beach Road, near Southbourne Crossroads. It's been established there for many years. It's below the car park on the beach, below the zigzag. There's a better view of it there. You can see it's actually showing on the Google image, Google Street View. So it's been there for quite a while. This is the elevations of what we approved previously. You can see it's a sort of an array of temporary buildings on an enclosed site. It also includes a decking on the beach, which isn't actually shown there, but there's also it also includes some decking on the beach. You can see it's got a temporary appearance about it with some canopies that they put over in the winter time. That's the decking area, which is on the beach. Members will be aware that we've approved quite a few other decks along the beach. Again, this is a perspective image of it. The only difference now is that we did put a condition on that they reviewed their mural on the front. You can see that mural on the front, and that's different now. That again shows the decking there. This is a photograph I took fairly recently, a couple of weeks ago, and you can see it's a fairly busy, popular place. And there's the new mural that they've put there. That's a closer view of some of the structures there. And this is the bike store that the bike storage area that they've created, following on from the previous consent. I can just go perhaps back to that picture. Chair, if you looking at my report, the way I've set it out is that I've set out the issues that we dealt with previously, and this consent that's there at the moment has got another year to run. But the applicants have applied for one additional year, and that's the issue that members need to consider today, whether or not that additional year is acceptable. I've run through the issues that we discussed previously in relation to sort of flooding issues, nuisance to neighbours, and the appearance of the site. We've got some objections to the development, and that's why it's being presented to the committee today. And I think in terms of the issues that I'd like to raise, that I'd address the points that have been put out by the objectors. One of the points raised is that we've given a temporary consent, and guidance suggests that we shouldn't renew temporary consents. The reason for that is that if we give a trial period, at the end of that trial period, we shouldn't give a further renewal of the consent. We should either refuse it because it's unacceptable, or give them permanent consent. But the issues here, Chair, are different in that the reason that we gave the temporary consent, which they're now seeking to extend, was because of the nature of the materials. As you can see from that image, it's not a permanent building. It's lots of sort of timber structures. There's an old bus there. There's a couple of porter cabins. And we were concerned that we shouldn't give that a permanent consent because in time it could deteriorate. But we have given, as one of the conditions of the original approval, they have to refresh it every year. And you can see from that image that they refreshed it last year. They've changed the mural on the front. and our view is that although it's not as smart and as sharp as a brand new building, it's the type of structure that is acceptable within that beach seafront area, and is similar to many other beach huts and other buildings along there. We consider that the main material there is timber, and we think another year isn't unreasonable for that, given that the condition will still be there, that they've got to refresh it every year. So that was one of the issues raised by the neighbours. The other issue is in relation to the fact that we're suggesting that they're suggesting that we only gave consent previously because there was an extant planning permission for a redevelopment of the site, and therefore this was an interim permission between them building the new development and carrying on the operation in the interim. That consent has now lapsed, so there's no fallback position of an alternative use on the site. However, as far as I'm aware, the council are deciding to what they should do with this site and are coming back to us with an alternative redevelopment proposal. So that's something that'll happen in the future. And of course, our seafront strategy suggests that sites like this should be used for this type of use. So although there's no fallback position, and therefore a short period under which this new, this will take over until the new development is carried out, we're still satisfied that this is a site that is appropriate for a cafe bar type of operation, and it's beneficial to the tourists and the local residents that visit this part of the beach. It's right at the bottom of a zigzag where people access the site. They'd expect to have refreshments there when they're at that part of the site, and there's always been a cafe use on the site. So we're happy that in terms of the principle of the use, it's something that should remain there. The other issue that's been raised, Chair, is that of noise and nuisance. That was a concern with the previous consent, and the Environmental Health Officer worked up a very detailed noise management plan, which, as far as we're concerned, they are implementing, and it has been reviewed by the Environmental Health Officer, and I think she went down there fairly recently and is satisfied that the noise management is acceptable. I think it is a difficult situation because there's some residents that live above the cliff top there that are reasonably close to it, and if there are events and music and so on that's carrying on there, they can hear it. But I think the key is to try and get that balance to make sure that the noise nuisance isn't unacceptable to a degree that it does affect their amenity in a significant way. With the Environmental Health Officer has had not many complaints actually over the past year since it's been operating under the new noise regime, and she has offered to go on site and put up noise monitors, but that offer hasn't been taken up. But I think that the key is that the noise management plan is in place. It appears to us to be working. If it doesn't work, the conditions on the site that require them to adhere to the noise management plan are there, and the Environmental Health Officer can make sure that they do comply with that. And if there are any issues, it becomes a statutory nuisance, then they can enforce it, and we can enforce the planning conditions as well. So that won't be lost by extending the permission another year. Chair, the conditions that we've added are the same as before. We've added one extra condition. It's not a new condition, but it's just to clarify the hours of operation and the number of events that they can carry out. This hasn't changed, but previously it was within the noise management plan. We just thought, for clarity reasons, it would be helpful to have it identified as a separate condition. So, Chair, to sum up, This consent is just to extend the year from the end of the summer next year, to give them an extra year. Obviously, it gives them more certainty on the site. We think it's appropriate. It's an appropriate use for this part of the beach, and so therefore, Chair, we're supporting it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Davies. Ms. Hollier, with speakers, please.
Thank you. So for objectors, we have James Kane, who is representing local residents. Mr. Kane is joining us on Teams, so whenever you're ready. Mr. Kane, I can see you're on the call. We are ready to hear from you. If you'd like to unmute yourself and put your camera on, please. You're on mute at the moment.
How's that, Joe? Is that okay? Can you hear me now?
Lovely, loud and clear. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, my name is James Kane. I act on behalf of a number of local households in objection to this application. The general flavour of objections from my clients include the following direct quotes, such as, Sobo Cafe must not be allowed to wreck the ambience of this popular beach for profit. Another says, please offer another site to Sobo in a more appropriate location. Another, I still hear thumping in my flat when outdoor music events are held. This is unacceptable in a peaceful residential area. Another says, there is continuous low-level noise nuisance throughout the summer months. Another, there is a lack of infrastructure to support this scale of commercial enterprise in this location. Another says the cliff, which is an SNCI, is suffering a severe environmental impact. Another says the heavy, low-frequency beats cause a distressing level of booming and throbbing sound inside our property. Another says the parking has created a truly dangerous situation. This use needs to be reduced rather than extended. Another says the council continue to under-enforce while planning breaches continue to occur, and now a further extension of period of use is being offered. It doesn't make sense. And finally, another one says an outdoor event in this peaceful part of the beach is simply wrong. Moving on from the residents' quotes, and as Mr. Davis has just referred to, members must fundamentally consider paragraph 014 of the National Planning Guidance concerning temporary extensions. This is a starting point for assessing this application, and I believe it's been partly brushed under the carpet in the officer's report. The guidance states that it will be rarely justifiable to grant a second temporary permission. There is no presumption that a temporary grant of permission will then be granted permanently. Look at the submissions of neighbours and look at the noise complaints and the amount of times they have been flagged up in terms of potential breaches of planning. The use has not been running smoothly without any complaints. As such, we have to look at the wording of the guidance, which states it will be rarely justifiable to grant a second temporary permission. That is a high bar in terms of the language being used. The officer's report does not go far enough, in my opinion, in proving that the high bar has been sufficiently cleared in this application. My clients have taken a legal opinion on this point, but there's been insufficient time to get you that since the officer's report was issued last week. It is surely in the interest of all concerned to ensure that the guidance is interpreted correctly by the local planning authority with regard to this second temporary permission issue. That moves us on to a second fundamental point, and that is one of the key reasons the first temporary permission was granted was because of the existence at that time of a lawful fallback position, namely a 3-storey permanent building for restaurants and beach lodges. That fallback position is now dead as the consent expired last month. So we have a situation where the original temporary permission was largely granted because of a fallback position. That fallback position is no longer lawful. And so in the interest of consistent decision making, due weight in the planning balance needs to be given to this fact. I note that Mr. Davis says, well, there could be an application coming at some point. I don't think that's going to cut it, to be honest. It's simply not given enough weight in the officer's report, and it's now up to members to try to retrieve the situation with BCP and give this issue weight. This is, after all, effectively an open-air public house and even a nightclub or day club usage where people come to drink alcohol, listen and dance to a specific type of DJ music that would normally be found within an enclosed building with high levels of noise insulation in order to protect neighbouring amenity. It is clear that there are far more appropriate locations along the beachfront, where this type of use would have a lesser impact to be more accessible, as well as being located closer to other businesses and facilities so that they can benefit from reciprocal footfall. I also refer you to the conclusions of the Clark Saunders noise report. I urge you to consider the application against local policies CS7, CS18, CS34, CS35, CS38, CS41, the seafront strategy, paragraph 8 of the MPF, paragraph 131 to 135 of the MPPF, and the MPPG guidance note 014, which advises on second temporary consents. It is respectfully requested that this application be refused. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Kane.
And speaking in support, people here in person, we have Matt Annan on behalf of the applicant and Richard Slater, Operations Manager.
Good afternoon, members. I'm here today representing the operators of Sobo Beach. I will be splitting my time on this application with Rich Slater, who is the operations manager for Sobo. The application site comprises the former Solent Beach complex, which was demolished by the council in 2022. The land remains within the ownership of the BCP Council, who have full control over the future redevelopment of this site. In July 2022, planning permission was granted, as you've heard, for the construction of a new restaurant, public conveniences and kiosk at ground floor level with 17 overnight lodges spread over 2 floors. This permission was not implemented by the council and expired last month in July 2025. It is understood BCP Council's estate team have submitted a pre-application inquiry to the planning department to seek their views on revised proposals for the site. Therefore, the permanent redevelopment of this site will not be completed for several years. The temporary planning permission for the Sobo Beach development was approved in December 2024 to form a stopgap to ensure that the site would continue to provide seafront leisure facilities for residents and visitors whilst BCP reviewed their strategy. This work remains ongoing, therefore a 1-year extension is sought by the operators. The application is submitted in good time to allow Sobo to plan their operations and continued investment at the site. Just to come back on the nature of the temporary consents have been previously extended and approved on numerous occasions by BCP Council in seafront locations, in particular West Beach and El Marino beachside. Without this extension, there's a serious risk the site will provide no facilities whatsoever between October 26 and October 27, which will be a significant loss to the local community and council's tourism offering for the beach. This application has the full support of the council's seafront operations team, who wish for the temporary use to continue whilst a permanent solution is found. Since permission was granted, the temporary structure and decking have been well maintained by the operators, and music and live events have been controlled strictly by the approved noise management plan. Therefore, there's no planning reason to withhold a 12-month extension, and Mr. Slater will discuss these points further. Thank you.
Hello there. Forgive me, I'm not generally used to talking in public like this, so I do get a little nervous. Over the last 4 years, Sobo Beach has built a reputation as a unique and vibrant offering on Bournemouth seafront, winning the hearts of the local community as well as national praise. Now, whilst James Kane offers anecdotal comment from some objectors, he doesn't actually offer any evidence on this case. And council officers, as Steve suggests, have been closely monitoring and making sure that the noise management plan is in place. And the EHO Cat Fowler was indeed on the cliff top on Sunday afternoon during an event to make sure that there were no noise issues, which there weren't. So it suggests that James Kane is effectively offering a little hyperbole to try and make a point. We did not ask for support from the public for this planning application this time due to clogging the planning department last time with over 1,300 comments of support. We wanted to allow this to go through as smoothly for the planning department as much as anything else. But local support far outweighs the number of objections, and that is people living in the flats above as well. They are not all of a single mind. Prior to this and following the demolition of Bista on the Beach, the site sat empty for over 6 months. We know BCP are looking for long-term options for the site, but with no active planning permissions, this will take time, and construction will also need to take place during off-season. We are seeking the year extension to ensure a seamless transition towards this future, one that ensures operational facilities for the year-round for the beach community. This is not just a summer venture, but this is a part of the beach that functions for the local community all year round. This also allows for further investment in improving the toilet facilities that are currently at BCP installation that is lacking for the needs of the location. As you'll see from the next item up on today's agenda, we're actually looking to privatise the public toilets and take over responsibility for running them and offering not only a better facility for people, but taking on the cost of that as well, which you'll hear more of shortly. As I say, the AHO was happy with sound testing on Sunday and is happy that the current noise management plan is effective. Residents have not been willing to let them go into their properties to measure noise, so there is no evidence to suggest otherwise. The majority of neighbours support us and are amongst our most frequent visitors. The only neighbours that are unwilling to open direct dialogue with ourselves have objections. We would welcome their engagement to try and help allay their concerns, as we have with other neighbours that we've built personal relationships over the last few years and helped to resolve their problems. Thank you.
Thank you.
And Councillor Nanovo.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Bernadette Nanovo, and I represent East Southbourne and Tupton Ward, where this business is located. It has been less than a year since I last spoke about the main planning application for this site, and little has changed since then. As one of the local councillors, I'm fully aware of both the advantages and drawbacks of the Sobo Beach Cafe. Last year, I received emails from residents who were concerned about the impact of this open-style cafe on the enjoyment of their homes. At that time, I expressed my sympathy for nearby residents and beach hut users who found the music intrusive when the cafe first began holding events. But a lot has been done to contain the noise, and that, I believe, has made a difference. I also recognise that the cafe continues to enjoy strong support from both locals and visitors. Its opening hours, catering to people who use the beach in the mornings and evenings throughout both winter and summer, are very much appreciated by the community. As I have said previously, Councillor Richardson and I would like to see a permanent enclosed building on this site in the future, as would many residents. However, I do not believe that this will be achievable in the next few years. That is why I support granting this extension. It will allow the council time to consider what is truly needed on this site and to issue a proper tender and work towards establishing a more suitable permanent structure. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, Mr. Davies, is there anything you wanted to come back from those speakers?
Chair, yes, just one point. It's sort of technical legal point, really, in that the objector is saying that we shouldn't renew a temporary consent, but actually this isn't necessarily a renewal of an expired consent. It's seeking a variation of the condition relating to the time period. So in effect, what they're saying is we've given you that currently there's a 2-year consent. They now want a 3-year consent, and so it's not necessarily something that's lapsed and we're renewing it again. But having said that, as Mr. Annan has said, historically along the seafront there are many uses like this, and we feel it's appropriate to do that. Gives us an opportunity to review things rather than give a permanent consent.
Okay.
Thank you, Chair.
Thank you for that. So members, are there questions? Councillor Flagg?
Thank you, Chair. We heard from the objector with regards to noise complaint issues, and I wonder if the officer can expand on para 13, where it says the environmental health officer was satisfied with the information that's been provided in respect of previous approval. The environmental health officer remains satisfied with the control measures in place to mitigate music noise and minimise the impact on local residents. And I just wonder if the officer can confirm to us that what has gone on, has the environmental health officer offered to go into those premises, those homes, and take recordings, and was that access refused?
Okay, so we have got Mr. Bark on online, but Mr. Davies, did you want to come in, or will you just link in?
Yes, Chair. Yes, I can probably update you, and Mr. Barker can add anything if he needs to. But yes, the environmental health officer has, as we've heard, been monitoring it quite carefully and has responded to complaints. My understanding is that that they have offered to set up noise monitoring equipment in the premises where the complaint has come from, to see whether or not it does breach not only the conditions in the noise management plan, but also noise issues in relation to statutory nuisance. That hasn't been followed up yet, but it can be followed up in the future if the objectors wish that process to be followed.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Barker, are you online? So the question for me was if any action. So if there has been noise complaints, what action with parties have you progressed? Thank you.
All I can do is pass across the points that my colleague Kat Fowler has put forward. In her words, to date, we've not substantiated a nuisance and complaints have not been forthcoming with allowing us to visit to their properties or install noise monitoring equipment. I'm aware that Kat visited on Sunday for an hour and took recordings. The event that they had on is advertised as being at event level noise. She couldn't even hear the noise from the grass bank in front of their place. The base level frequencies were in line with what we would expect, so they wouldn't cause a nuisance. We do have fallback positions under the Environmental Protection Act and under licensing regimes if we do establish problems in the future.
Okay, thanks for confirming that. So if there's no further questions, we're going to debate. So is it mute? Yeah. Okay, so Councillor Pedrin.
Right, I might as well kick off. I remember this when it came up last time. We were happy with it then. I see no reason not to progress with this. It's going to be open for the next year anyway on the existing consent. So this takes another year. Hopefully, I think most of us, if not all of us, want to see a permanent structure there and permanent plans at least on the table and being agreed, even if not actually constructed by that time, but ideally well underway for construction, ready for summer 28, if not before. But in the meantime, I'm very happy to progress with this. I'll move. Yeah.
Okay, that's the proposal. Councillor Martin.
A second that, if it's a proposal.
Okay, thank you. So we have a proposal and a seconder. Was there any more debate? So we're happy to go to the vote. So if you vote now to accept the proposal as set out.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And Chair, can I just confirm that was with the additional condition in the addendum? Thank you.
That's it. So that is unanimous. So that is approved. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Davies. So item 6C is the cafe at Southbourne Promenade.
4 minutes? Doubtful.
Okay, so Councillor Gillett has left the meeting now, and Officer Miss James is just joining. Thank you.
Not yet. No, hold on 2 seconds, sorry. Sorry, 2 seconds. I'll just get rid of something else. Hi, my name's Jenny. I'm the planning officer for another application at Southbourne Beach. The application is for the erection of a sauna with associated changing rooms and upper floor seating and changing area with associated works, including the installation of replacement public toilet facilities and the relocation of the existing bin store. Steve's already covered the location to a degree, but just to quickly recap, the site is again at Southbourne at the Sobo beach location. It is within the wider BCP owned site, which is outlined in blue, and the relevant site is the little red outlined rectangle there. Just moving on. This is an aerial view of the application site. Just to recap, it is next to the site that we've just been talking about. My application is in relation to the refuse store, which is there on the left, and the two white rectangles there, which are the existing toilet blocks. As you can see, it's a fairly underdeveloped site in relation to the existing hard standing that is there. These are some recent site photos which I took a couple of weeks ago, looking at the site from the promenade. You can see the existing structures there with the top part of the bin store visible on the left. And on the right, you can see the top part of the existing toilet blocks, which are fairly typical portable toilet blocks. To the front, this existing timber structure was built by BCP as part of the previous tender for the site. This is just another aerial view just to give you a clearer idea of the site. These are the existing plans of the toilets that are available at the moment. They're relatively small, with a total of 3 women's toilets and 2 men's toilets with a couple of urinals and 1 accessible unit, like wheelchair accessible unit. On the left is where the current bin store is as well. These are the proposed elevations and floor plans for the reprovision and improvement of public toilets. As you can see, there are 7 women's toilets, 3 men's toilets, and 5 urinals, and 2 outdoor showers, which are provided just to the front here, where my cursor is. The bin store has been relocated to the other side of the site. It's slightly larger and is still of an appropriate size for the existing uses at the site and also the proposed uses. And the council's waste team have provided no objection to this change. The bin stores would still be operated, collections of the waste would still be operated by BCP in the same way as all of the similar operations along the beachfront in BCP. This is the floor plans for the proposed sauna. On the left-hand side is the ground floor with provision for a 25-person maximum sauna on the left here. And to the front, there's a semi-enclosed canopy over the entrance to the sauna. You'd enter through a small lobby just here, where there will be staff to check people in, advise and manage the day-to-day operation of the sauna. And then within there is a smaller changing area with bag store facilities and just space for people's gear that they don't need to take in. On the right, we have the upper floor for the sauna, which is a dedicated changing area for sauna users with changing cubicles on the left and a lockable storage system here for valuables or any smaller items, and just a very standard bench area for getting changed. These are the elevations for the proposed sauna element of the proposal. You can see to the front is the main entrance with a door and a regular window. And to the left of that is a larger window for the users of the sauna, providing pleasant vistas out to the beach, but also views from the beach to the sauna to activate this part of the beachfront. And sort of let people know that there is this offer of a sauna activity on the beach. There are also 3 showers provided to the front to use before or after the sauna or being in the sea. The materials are contrasting light and dark timber, which is appropriate to the area, timber being the main material that is currently used on the site. The upper part is a hit and miss, so you'll be able to see through it, and that's sort of lighter in appearance and again is appropriate to the area. It's a street scene illustration of the proposal, just demonstrating that the scale is within keeping of the surrounding development. It does show where the existing front boundary wall will be altered to include this glass balustrade, which again allows views in and out of the proposal site, which is beneficial to the users of the sauna, but also to passers-by who can also see into the site more. And it helps activate this otherwise fairly blank frontage along the promenade. Here's just a few other illustrations of the proposal. The main issues that were raised within the application were initially the principle of the introduction of a sauna use to this part of the beach, and secondly, mostly within the public response, the potential impact of the smoke emissions to the residential amenity of the nearby properties above from the use of a wood-fired stove and its operation for extensive periods of time. Turning to the principle of the development, It was assessed to comply with the relevant policies, policy CS29, protecting tourism and cultural facilities. The proposal would add a suitable visitor activity to this part of the beachfront and would support tourism as set out in that policy. Policy CS6 is delivering sustainable communities, and the proposal provides enhanced key facilities with the reprovision of the toilets and the addition of a sauna use. Again, is a good development opportunity for the area. And policy CS31, recreation, play and sports. The built form is wider on the site than is currently existing, but it's within the same area as previous built form, and it does not unduly impact on the public open space. It doesn't encroach at all on the promenade, the beach, or any of those protected areas. And it's providing a suitable recreational use. The second main issue is residential amenity, and the relevant policy is CS38, minimising pollution. And where the main concern from the public was the potentially harmful emissions from the wood-fired system. The applicant was asked if the system could be replaced with an electric system in the same manner as what is currently available at the Avon beach sauna. And this change was forthcoming, and so the application was amended to exclude a wood-fired sauna. And so there will be an electric system where there will be no emissions to local residences at all. So that issue essentially has been resolved. Just for thoroughness in terms of residential amenity, the additional maximum of 25 people an hour to the site for this use is not likely to cause harm from additional comings and goings. The sauna use will not generate any sort of undue noise either. And following the amendments, there were no objections from environmental health. In conclusion, the introduction of a recreational use and the better provision of toilets and showers is acceptable in this location. The design, scale and materials, again, are suitable for this beachfront location. There are no unacceptable impacts to nearby residents, residential properties, and no objections from environmental health. And there were also noted as no unacceptable impacts to highways or pedestrian safety, subject to a condition for a suitable construction management plan, which would need to be approved prior to construction.
Okay, thank you, Ms. James. Ms. Hollyoak for speakers.
Okay, thank you. There are no registered objectors. We have Matt Annan who's speaking on behalf of the applicant.
Thank you, Chairman. Hello again, members. The application before you has been recommended for approval by the officers. It's been referred to Planning Committee for the decision because the council is the landowner. The proposal has extensive public support, and of the 63 representations submitted to the council, 49 of them are supportive of the proposal. The majority of those who submitted objections during the consultation stage raised concerns about smoke emissions and fire risk from the installation of a wood-burning sauna. But as you've heard, to maintain good relationships with the beach users and neighbouring residents, the applicant has amended the scheme during the course of the proposal to remove the wood burner from the application and replace it with an electrical heating system. The council's environmental health officer has reviewed the latest proposal and raises no objections. The planning permission is sought for the erection of a sauna with changing and seating areas associated works, including the installation of replacement public toilet facilities. I wish to use my time today to outline the main considerations why I feel members should proceed to grant planning consent in line with the recommendation. The proposed sauna will be operated by the Saltwater Sauna Company, who are a local award-winning sauna provider, with existing saunas at Sandbanks, Avon Beach and Lulworth Cove. They provide an authentic Finnish sauna experience, which attracts tourists and locals, and like-minded sauna and sea swimming enthusiasts from all walks of life. The UK's seaside sauna movement has experienced unprecedented growth in recent years as the health and well-being benefits of sauna use have become widely published, which has created rising demands for wellness-based leisure activities in coastal areas. The existing saunas at Sandbanks and Avon Beach are well used by the local community, tourists and local charity groups such as Dorset Mind and local veteran groups who are provided with free sessions. Consequently, the saunas are often fully booked for weeks in advance and there is an established need for extra capacity within the BCP area. Such demand would be satisfied by the current proposal at Southbourne Beach, which is ideally placed between the other companies' saunas, at Poole and Christchurch. Between the company's other saunas, I should have said. The proposed sauna will be able to accommodate up to 25 people for communal sessions, which can be booked online by members of the public. It is essential for the sauna to be positioned close to the beach because it allows users to partake in contrast therapy, which is a traditional Nordic technique involving a repeated cycle of a 15-minute sauna followed by a cold water dip. I tried it, I highly recommend it. Now's a good time to do it when the sea's not as cold. Benefits of sauna are extensive and include reduced stress and anxiety, improved cardiovascular health and reduced stroke risk, reduced inflammation and chronic pain, boosted immune system, improved sleep quality, improved brain health. Aside from these health and well-being benefits, the sauna also benefits the local economy through sauna tourism and links with local businesses such as cafes and restaurants and bars which are frequented by sauna customers after their sauna sessions. The proposal also includes installation of 2 open-air showers and replacement public toilet facilities, including dedicated disabled facilities. The upgrade of these facilities will be a significant benefit to the local area as a tourist and visitor hub. The proposal has been assessed by the planning officer, who has supported the proposal. In addition, there are no objections from the local highway authority, the environmental health, nor the lead local flood authority. In summary, the proposal complies with the development plan and has overwhelming support from local residents. Therefore, councillors, I hope you agree with your officer's recommendation to grant planning permission and vote in favour of approving this proposal. Thank you for listening.
And Councillor Nanovo.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Councillor Bernadette Nanovo and I represent East Southbourne and Tuckton Ward where the Sobo Beach Cafe is based. The addition of a sauna at Sobo Beach Cafe is welcomed by many residents. Saunas are in use at many beach locations, as we've heard, and are very popular, with year-round swimmers particularly. And improved toilet facilities is a big bonus. Concerns about pollution from a wood-fired sauna were raised by residents living close to the site, and they emailed Councillor Richardson and I and asked for our support. I'm therefore glad to see that these concerns have been addressed by switching to electricity, reducing pollution worries. While there are other objections, I think the sauna will be more of a positive than a negative, and I trust this committee to make the right decision. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Ms James, anything what's been said by the speakers that want to come back on that? No. Okay, we shall go straight into questions. Councillor Pedevin.
Yes, thank you. It's going to be power by electricity, but I don't see any mention of solar PV panels on the building, which seems an ideal situation, south facing beach.
I mean, there isn't much rooftop that is available on top of the actual sauna itself.
Or the toilet block, whichever.
Yeah, it could potentially be on the toilet block, although there are the sort of the V-shaped front facade that projects above, which might cast a shadow. But
it seems to me this is an environment gain, or certainly not loss, that has been missed and would be useful if it were feasible. But it obviously hasn't even been explored.
No.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Martin.
Seems to be my theme this morning. Just looking at this, I just noticed that actually the log store is still on the plan under the stairs, but I'm guessing you won't want that. My theme for this morning is actually disabled access, which I mentioned at the airport thing as well. It's the because the changing rooms are upstairs. How are you going to cater for somebody in a wheelchair?
So there are changing facilities on the ground floor as well within the sauna, and all of the doorways are wide enough to accommodate a wheelchair. They're more than the minimum standards to accommodate a wheelchair.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, I didn't notice it said change as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And just for me, is your understanding that the toilets will be open at the same time as the saunas?
So they're currently run by BCP, and that would be the current operation. So the council would continue to control that. In the future, as was discussed in the previous application, if there's a new tender for the site, that could change, but that would be something that would be controlled in the legal agreements in the lease.
Okay, thank you for that. So if there's no further questions, we go into debate. So
You're looking at me and I haven't put my hand up. And since I proposed the last one, I'm happy to propose this one. We've already agreed to several saunas along the seafront. They're obviously very popular, very successful, fulfilling a new need. I mean, who would have thought it 5-10 years ago that we would be putting open air saunas? I certainly wouldn't have, but yeah, why not?
okay, thank you for the proposal. And Councillor, if you just put the mic on again, sorry, just for formality.
I'm sorry, I'm not with it today, am I? Yeah, I'd like to second. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. And any other further debate? Councillor Rice?
Yeah, I'd just like to express my support for this type of initiative that I believe is useful for keeping people within the UK and benefiting the local economy, unlike the previous application.
Thank you. And last point, Councillor Martin.
Yeah, just say as well, I support Councillor Rice. I think this is wonderful for the community. Personally, I can't stand saunas, so I wouldn't use it myself. But I do appreciate that other people really like them. I prefer the steam room. Okay.
Okay, if that's the end of the debate, so we got a proposal and seconded to approve as set out. So vote now to approve.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for your time. Thank you. That moves us on to item 7, which is the appeals report for noting. So again, it just shows that we are below national with appeals going to the inspectors, which is good news. So noted. And if there's no further comment on that, we shall close the meeting.